Welcome in, everybody. Ready to dive deep into product liability.
Always ready for deep dive, especially on something as important as this.
We're going to be looking at, it's basically a super comprehensive product liability checklist. And I got to say, it's packed with really practical stuff to help, anyone listening who's involved with bringing products to market make sure they're doing it safely and responsibly.
It really does cover everything. I mean, from the very first design stages all the way to dealing with, well, potential incidents down the line. It's almost like a roadmap to help minimize risk.
One of the things that really stood out to me was that case with that self-driving stroller company a few years back. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. How could I forget? That was a landmark case for sure.
Their AI system, totally malfunctioned, caused a bunch of accidents, and boom, the company went under, overnight, practically.
Yeah, it really highlighted how crucial it is to get this stuff right,
Mm-hmm.
And it all starts with a solid foundation, having a crystal clear product safety policy.
Okay, so you're saying it's not just about, checking a box, right? Just saying, yep, we got a policy and moving on.
Sure.
What makes a product safety policy actually, effective?
Well, it needs to be more than just a document, right? Think of it as a living, breathing set of principles that everyone in the company, really understands and embraces. It has to be specific to your products and your processes.
So you're saying you wouldn't use the same safety procedures for, making teddy bears as you would for, say, power tools?
Right.
Makes sense.
Exactly. And you need someone, or even better, like a whole dedicated team who's responsible for product safety and liability.
Yeah.
Someone who's always keeping an eye on the big picture.
It makes me wonder, how many companies out there actually have, a designated product safety team in place?
Yeah.
Something to think about, right?
Absolutely. It's one of those things that often gets overlooked until it's too late.
And speaking of things going wrong, this checklist really, really emphasizes risk evaluation. But isn't that something that companies should already be doing anyway?
Well, they should be, but the key here is being truly thorough. You know what I mean? Systematically analyzing every single stage of the product life cycle to identify potential hazards.
Yeah.
And it's not just a one-time thing either.
Right, because, regulations change, new materials pop up, even consumer behavior changes over time, right?
Right.
So you're constantly evaluating and reevaluating.
Precisely. And sometimes the biggest risks aren't the obvious ones. It's the unforeseen ways a product might be used or misused that can really, really trip you up.
Okay, that's a little unnerving. How do you even begin to, anticipate how someone might misuse a product?
That's where this checklist can be really, really helpful. It prompts you to think about scenarios, that might not be immediately apparent. For example, what happens if, let's say, a part breaks, right? Could it create, a sharp edge or release harmful chemicals? These are things you have to think about.
So it's like thinking several steps ahead and considering, all the what ifs.
Exactly. And this feeds directly into the design phase. Instead of tacking on safety features as an afterthought, you're integrating them right from the very beginning.
So we're talking about things like safety guards on machinery or maybe tamper-proof packaging on medications, stuff like that?
Sure, those are classic examples, but it goes deeper than that. It's about choosing materials that are inherently safer, designing products that are, ergonomically sound, even thinking about the product's disposal at the end of its life.
Even disposal. I never thought about that.
Oh, absolutely. Think about batteries, for example. If they're not disposed of properly, they can leak, harmful substances into the environment. That's a liability risk right there.
Okay, so it's not just about making sure the product works. It's about anticipating, how it could be misused and designing it to prevent those accidents from happening in the first place.
You got it. And it's not just about what you do in-house either. This checklist, it really emphasizes the importance of external evaluations.
So you're saying it's a good idea to get an outside perspective on your product, and its potential risks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just, too close to the project. You don't see all the angles, a fresh set of eyes. They can often spot potential issues that you might have missed.
I can see how that would be especially important for something really innovative, a product that's unlike anything else on the market.
Exactly. When you're breaking new ground, there's no precedent to follow. Right. So it's even more important to get that external validation.
And this all kind of ties back to that self-driving stroller case, doesn't it?
It does.
I bet those companies wish they'd gotten more external feedback before launching such a radical product.
Yeah, it's a harsh lesson, but a very important one. It underscores how important thorough risk evaluation is and external validation, especially when you're dealing with cutting-edge technology.
Okay, so let's recap. We've got a solid product safety policy, a dedicated team, and we're rigorously evaluating risks, right, throughout the whole design process. What's next on this checklist?
Well, this might surprise you, but purchasing actually plays a critical role in minimizing product liability risks.
You're talking about, like, the stuff you buy to make your product, right? So, like, raw materials, components, that sort of thing.
Precisely. You need to make absolutely sure that your suppliers and vendors are, well, they're just as committed to safety as you are.
Okay, so it's about making sure everyone in your supply chain is on the same page when it comes to safety, I mean.
Exactly. The checklist recommends a legal review of all your purchase documents.
Wait, hold on. Legal review for, like, purchase orders? That seems a bit much, doesn't it?
Well, not really. When you think about it, those documents, they should clearly outline the safety standards that
Yeah.
that your suppliers need to meet. And if a problem does arise, well, those documents can be really crucial in determining liability.
Okay, so it's about protecting yourself legally, but it's also about making sure that everyone involved understands their responsibility for product safety.
You got it. It's about building a culture of safety that goes beyond just your company walls and goes throughout your entire supply chain.
That makes sense. Okay, so we've designed a safe product, we're sourcing components responsibly. Now it's time to actually build the thing. So that's where quality assurance comes in, right?
Got it. This is where the rubber meets the road. A really robust quality assurance program is like the backbone of product safety.
So what are the key elements of a good quality assurance program? I mean, we're not just talking about, like, a quick visual inspection at the end of the production line, are we?
No, definitely not. We're talking about a really comprehensive system that covers like every single stage of production.
Hmm.
From incoming material inspections to in-process checks and in final product testing. Like every step needs to be documented and verified.
And it's not just about catching defects, right? It's about preventing them in the first place.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
And by analyzing, data from your quality control checks, you can actually identify patterns and trends that can help you pinpoint potential problem areas and then, make improvements proactively.
Oh, so it's like a continuous feedback loop, right?
Yeah.
You're using data to improve your processes and ultimately make your products even safer.
Exactly. And you can't rely just on internal checks either. This checklist, it stresses how important independent audits are.
So you're saying it's valuable to have an outside expert come in and really scrutinize your quality assurance program.
Absolutely. It brings a level of objectivity that you just can't get from an internal review, right?
Yeah.
An independent auditor can find weaknesses in your system, benchmark your practices against industry standards, and really help you stay ahead of potential problems.
It sounds like those audits could be really valuable, even if they might be a bit uncomfortable sometimes.
Sometimes you need that, though.
It's like having a personal trainer, but for your product safety program, pushing you to do better.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about continuous improvement, striving for excellence in every aspect of product safety.
All right, so we've designed a safe product, sourced our materials carefully, and we've got a top-notch quality assurance program in place. We're good to go, right? Ship it.
Hold on. Not so fast. We've still got a few more essential elements to cover.
Oh, okay. What else have we missed?
Clear communication. It sounds simple, but it's absolutely critical, for preventing accidents and minimizing liability.
So it's more than just like writing a user manual, right?
It is. It starts with, clear and easy to understand instructions and warnings, but it also extends to the information you provide to your sales and marketing teams. They need to understand the product's, safety features, limitations, so they can accurately represent it to customers.
Oh, okay. So everyone who interacts with the product, right, from the factory floor to the retail shelf, they all need to be on the same page when it comes to safety.
That's right. Think about all those warning labels you see on products, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it might seem obvious to you and me, but to someone who's unfamiliar with the product, they could be, life-saving.
And those labels need to be more than just like a legal disclaimer, right? They need to be clear, concise, and easy to understand.
Exactly. They need to effectively communicate the potential hazards and how to avoid them. And they need to be tailored to the specific audience that's using the product.
This reminds me, I once bought a toy for my niece, and it had a warning label on it that said, do not use in a bathtub. I mean, who would even think to use a toy truck in a bathtub?
Yeah, I know, right? It's a great example of how warning labels sometimes they just miss the mark. You know, they need to be specific to the product and anticipate like potential misuse scenarios.
All right, so clear communication, that's key. What else do we got to consider?
Packaging. It's not just about aesthetics. It plays a vital role in product safety and liability.
So you mean like making sure the product doesn't get damaged during shipping?
Yeah, that's part of it, but it goes further than that. The packaging needs to protect the product, of course, but it also needs to communicate important safety information and comply with all the relevant regulations.
So it's like the first line of defense, even before the consumer even opens the product, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It sets the stage for a safe and responsible user experience. And you know what? Even the packaging, it needs to be reviewed by legal counsel.
Are you serious? Lawyers are reviewing cardboard boxes now.
It might sound a little extreme, but it's really essential to make sure that the packaging complies with all applicable laws and regulations,
Yeah.
including labeling requirements and warning statements.
Wow, I never realized how much thought and consideration goes into something as seemingly simple as packaging.
It's often overlooked,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a really critical part of product safety and liability.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here. We talked about clear communication, responsible packaging, and a really strong quality assurance program. But what happens if, despite all our best efforts, something goes wrong?
That's where incident and claim handling come in. You need to have a plan in place for dealing with customer complaints, product misuse, and potential liability claims.
Let's be real. Nobody wants to think about things going wrong, but it's a reality we have to face, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's not a matter of if, but when. Even with the most rigorous safety protocols in place, things can happen. A product can malfunction, a consumer can misuse it, or an unforeseen circumstance can lead to an accident.
So what does a good incident and claim handling process even look like?
Well, first and foremost, it means documenting every incident thoroughly. Then you got to investigate, the root cause, which might mean analyzing returned products, reviewing customer feedback, or even conducting like on-site inspections.
That sounds like a lot of detective work.
It can be, but it's really important to understand why something went wrong, so you can take steps to prevent it from happening again.
And I'm guessing that documentation is super important, not just for like internal analysis, but also for potential legal situations, right?
Absolutely. If a liability claim is filed, you need to be able to show that you took appropriate steps to investigate the incident and address any underlying issues.
So it's not just about damage control, it's about learning from mistakes and continuously improving your products and your processes.
That's right. Every incident, no matter how small, it's an opportunity to gather valuable data that can help you make your product safer in the long run.
Okay, so we've got a system in place for handling incidents and claims. What's the next step in our product liability checklist journey?
Product traceability. It may sound like, just a technical detail, but it's a really crucial part of product safety.
I'm assuming this is about being able to track a product back to where it came from, right?
Exactly. Every component of your product, it needs to be traceable, right?
Mm-hmm.
From the raw materials to the finished goods.
Okay, but why is that so important?
Well, imagine there's a safety issue with, let's say, a particular batch of your product. You need to be able to quickly figure out, which components were used in that batch, where the components came from, and which products are affected.
Oh, so it's about containing a potential problem before it becomes like a widespread issue.
You got it. Traceability, it allows you to act fast to protect consumers and minimize the impact of any safety issues that might pop up.
It sounds like a logistical nightmare, keeping track of all those parts and components.
It can be challenging. But thankfully, technology has made it a lot easier, Barcoding, RFID tags, sophisticated software systems, they can all help you track every step of the manufacturing process and create a comprehensive history for each product.
So if a problem does come up, you can quickly pinpoint the source and take action, right?
Exactly. It's about having the information you need to respond responsibly to any safety concerns.
All right, so we've covered incident handling, product traceability. Anything else we need to be prepared for?
Well, there's one more critical piece, a product recall plan.
Okay, let's be honest. No one wants to think about having to recall their product, but sometimes it's unavoidable, right?
It is. Yeah. Despite all your best efforts, there might be a situation where a product defect or a safety issue comes up that requires a recall.
Yeah.
And in those situations, you have to be prepared to act quickly to protect consumers.
So a recall plan is basically your playbook for handling that kind of situation.
Right, exactly. It outlines, the steps you'll take to notify customers, retailers, regulatory agencies, and the procedures for retrieving and getting rid of the affected products.
And I'm guessing there are legal requirements involved too, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You need to comply with all the applicable regulations, reporting requirements, and you need to have a communication strategy ready to go to manage, the public relations side of the recall.
It sounds like a logistical and communication challenge, of epic proportions.
It can be, but it's so important to have a plan in place so you can, navigate the situation and minimize any damage to your brand and most importantly, protect consumers.
Okay, so we've really covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about, product safety policies and risk evaluation, all the way to incident handling and product recalls. Seems like this checklist really does cover, like, all the bases.
It's a comprehensive roadmap to creating and maintaining a culture of product safety.
But it's not a one-time thing, is it? It's an ongoing process.
It is. Product safety it's a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the final element of the checklist, regular audits.
So even after all this, you're saying we still need to go back and double check our work.
Absolutely. Regular audits are essential to making sure that your product safety program is effective and up to date. Think of them as like a health check for your whole system.
So what does an audit involve? Is it like, an interrogation where they go through every single document and procedure with a fine-tooth comb?
It can be pretty thorough, yes. But it's not about finding fault. It's about, identifying areas where you can improve and making sure that your systems are strong enough to handle the constantly changing world of product safety.
So it's a chance to learn, to adapt, and to constantly improve.
Precisely. The goal is to create a culture of continuous improvement where product safety is always top of mind.
And I'm guessing these audits are especially important as technology, continues to evolve and new product categories emerge.
Absolutely. The world of product liability it's constantly changing. Right?
Yeah.
And you got to stay ahead of the curve. Regular audits can help you do just that.
This whole deep dive has really opened my eyes to just how complex product liability is. It's clearly not just about slapping a warning label on a product and calling it a day.
It's about creating a culture of safety that goes into every single aspect of your business, from the initial design concept to the way you handle potential incidents.
And it's an ongoing responsibility. It's a commitment to constantly learning and improving.
You got it. And it's a responsibility that we all share as manufacturers, as consumers, as members of society.
Well said. This has been a really fascinating discussion, but we're not done yet. Stay tuned for part 2, where we're going to dive into the legal side of product liability and explore the different types of claims that can arise.
Welcome back.
Okay, so far we've been talking about all the proactive steps companies can take to minimize their risk, But what happens when something actually does go wrong? What's the legal landscape like?
Well, that's where things can get really complicated.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing to understand is that there are different types of product liability claims.
Mm-hmm.
The big three are negligence, strict liability, and breach of warranty.
Okay, break this down for me. What exactly does it mean for a company to be negligent?
Negligence basically means that the manufacturer or the seller, they didn't exercise what's considered reasonable care. It could be in the design of the product, the manufacturing process, or even in the way they warned consumers about potential, hazards.
Okay, so I'm trying to picture a real world example. What would that look like?
Sure. Let's say a company, they discover a defect in their product, but they choose not to issue a recall, or they use substandard materials to cut costs, even though they know it could compromise safety. Those are examples of negligence.
So it's about proving that the company knew or should have known about the danger, but didn't take the necessary steps, right?
Got it. Now, what about strict liability? I feel like that's a term that gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah, it's a pretty powerful legal concept. In a strict liability case, the manufacturer or the seller, they're liable for injuries caused by a defective product, regardless of their intent. Wait, so even if they did everything right, followed all the safety protocols, they they could still be held responsible.
That's the key difference between negligence and strict liability.
Yeah.
With strict liability, the focus is on the product itself, not the conduct of the manufacturer. If the product is defective and it causes harm, they're liable, period.
I can see how that would be controversial. Wouldn't that make companies like hesitant to innovate, especially in new fields like nanotechnology or something like that?
Yeah, it's a valid concern. And there's definitely debate, around the impact of strict liability on innovation. Some people argue that it stifles creativity, while others say that it ultimately leads to safer products. It's a tough issue with no easy answers.
Okay, so we've got negligence where it's about, proving fault, and
Right.
we've got strict liability where the focus is on the product itself. What's the third type of claim?
Breach of warranty. This one's a bit more straightforward. It basically means that the product didn't perform as promised.
So if I buy a blender and it's advertised as being, restaurant grade, but it burns out after making one smoothie, that's a breach of warranty.
Perfect example. There are actually two types of warranties.
Yeah.
Express and implied. An express warranty is a specific promise made by the seller, like in your blender example. An implied warranty is a more general guarantee that the product is fit for its ordinary purpose.
Okay, so even if a product doesn't come with a fancy written warranty, there's still an understanding that it should do what it's supposed to do.
Exactly. If you buy a car, for instance, there's an implied warranty that it's going to be able to drive safely on the road. You don't need a written contract for that to be true.
This is all starting to make more sense now, but I gotta admit, it's a little daunting to think about all the legal complexities involved with bringing a product to market.
It really underscores how important it is to have a good legal team, on your side. They can help you navigate these issues and make sure you're in compliance with all the relevant laws and regulations.
Okay, so let's say a company gets hit with a product liability claim. What are some of the defenses they can use?
Well, one common defense is to argue that the product wasn't actually defective. They might claim that it was misused by the consumer or that it was modified in some way that made it unsafe.
So they're basically shifting the blame back to the user.
In a sense, yes. They're trying to show that the problem wasn't with the product itself, but with the way it was used or handled.
Are there any other common defenses?
Another one is the state-of-the-art defense. This basically means that the manufacturer, they're claiming that the product was designed and manufactured using the best technology that was available at the time.
So they're saying, hey, we didn't know about this potential hazard because the technology to even detect it didn't exist back then. Does that actually hold up in court?
It really depends on the specific circumstances. Courts will consider the state of scientific knowledge at the time the product was made, as well as industry standards and practices.
Yeah.
It's not a foolproof defense, but it can be successful in some cases.
It seems like these product liability cases can get pretty complicated. What are some of the key factors that courts consider when making their decisions?
Well, it varies from case to case, of course, but some of the most important factors include the nature and severity of the injury, the type of defect that's involved, the manufacturer's knowledge of the defect, and the consumer's own actions. It's not just black and white. There's a lot of nuances and gray areas.
And I imagine that's where having a skilled legal team really makes a difference.
Oh, absolutely. A good lawyer can help you build a strong defense, present your case effectively, and hopefully achieve a favorable outcome.
Okay, so we've talked about the different types of claims and the defenses that companies can use, but let's step back for a second. What are some practical steps that companies can take to minimize their legal risks in the first place?
Well, we've already talked about a lot of them in the context of the checklist, right?
Mhm.
Things like having a strong quality assurance program, clear communication strategies, thorough documentation. Those are all essential. But there are also some specific legal strategies that can be helpful.
Okay, I'm all ears. Give me some examples.
One of the most important is to make sure you have adequate product liability insurance. This can provide financial protection if you are sued. It can help cover legal expenses and potential damages. Another key strategy is to work closely with your legal counsel throughout the entire product development process. They can review your designs, your warnings, your marketing materials, to make sure you're in compliance with all the relevant laws and regulations.
So it's not just about calling your lawyer when something goes wrong. It's about involving them from the very beginning.
Exactly. Think of your legal counsel as a partner in the product development process.
Mm,
They can help you spot potential risks and address them, proactively before they become major problems.
that makes sense. And I imagine staying up to date on changes in product liability law is pretty crucial too.
Oh, absolutely. The legal landscape it's always changing, right? With new regulations and precedents popping up all the
Yeah.
time. It's essential to stay informed, to be adaptable, and to always be thinking about the bigger picture.
I'm starting to see how product liability isn't just a legal issue. It's a business imperative. It's about protecting your customers, your brand, and ultimately your bottom line.
That's exactly right. And it's not just about, minimizing risk. It's also about doing the right thing,
Mm.
creating safe, reliable products that meet the needs of your customers. That should be the ultimate goal.
Well said. This has been a fascinating look at the legal complexities of product liability. But there's one more question I have to ask before we wrap up this part of the deep dive. What about the future? How do you see the world of product liability, evolving in the years to come?
That's a great question, and one that leads us perfectly into the final part of our deep dive. We'll be back in a moment to explore the future of product liability and how new technologies are reshaping the legal landscape.
We're back and ready to really get into the future of product liability. And I gotta say, I'm already feeling a little overwhelmed.
It can definitely feel that way, yeah?
It's like the legal stuff we just talked about wasn't complicated enough, and now we're throwing self-driving cars and AI robots into the mix, and who knows what else is coming down the line.
Well, you're right. The future of product liability is definitely tied to these rapid technological advancements, AI, Internet of Things, even things like nanotechnology. They're all gonna reshape how we think about product safety and responsibility.
Okay, so let's start with AI, since that seems to be the hottest topic these days. We talked earlier about how with strict liability, the focus is on the product itself. But with AI, where even is the product? Is it the algorithm? Is it the hardware that's running the AI? I mean, where do you even start?
You're hitting on one of the biggest questions that courts and legal experts are wrestling with right now.
Mm.
When an AI system malfunctions and causes an accident, who is actually responsible? Is it the company that developed the AI software, the manufacturer that integrated into a product, or even the user who maybe made some incorrect assumptions about the AI's capabilities?
Okay, so let's say a self-driving car, right, makes a wrong decision and causes a collision. Where do you even begin to untangle the liability in that situation?
One thing that's going to be absolutely crucial in those cases is data. These AI systems, they generate massive amounts of data, tracking everything from sensor readings to decision-making processes. Analyzing those data logs could be key to understanding why the AI made the choices it did and who might be responsible for any errors.
So it's almost like those data logs become like the black box, in an airplane crash investigation. You need them to piece together what happened.
That's a great analogy, and it raises another interesting question: who owns that data, and who has the right to access it? We're talking about some potentially sensitive information, about how a product operates, how a user interacts with it.
This all makes me wonder if we need new laws and regulations that are specifically designed to address these unique challenges, that AI and product liability bring up.
It's definitely something that lawmakers and regulators are actively talking about. Do we need to modify existing product liability laws to fit AI, or do we need like a whole new framework? These are the questions that are being debated right now.
Okay, so AI is one piece of the puzzle. What about all these other technologies that are kind of blurring the lines, right, between the physical and the digital worlds? Things like the Internet of Things, for example.
Right. Think about all those smart devices we have now, right? From refrigerators that can order groceries to fitness trackers that monitor our every move. They're constantly collecting data about us, about our environment.
And I guess that data could be really valuable for improving product safety, right? If a company sees like a pattern of malfunctions in a certain model of a smart refrigerator, they could issue a warning or a recall before anything serious happens.
Exactly. But it also raises concerns about data privacy and security. If a product malfunctions and someone's injured, could that data be used against the manufacturer in a lawsuit? Could it be hacked or misused by third parties? These are real concerns that we need to be thinking about, as these technologies become more and more common.
I'm starting to realize that the future of product liability isn't just about legal frameworks and technical challenges, It's also about ethical considerations.
You're absolutely right. As these technologies become more sophisticated and more integrated into our lives, we have to think about those ethical implications. How do we balance innovation with responsibility? How do we make sure that these technologies are being used safely, fairly, and transparently?
So it's not just about, minimizing legal risk. It's about building trust with consumers and being responsible stewards of these powerful technologies.
Exactly. It's about a more holistic approach to product development, one that considers not just the bottom line, but also the broader impact on society.
This deep dive has been incredibly insightful, even if it has been a little terrifying at times. We've covered so much, from the basics of a product liability checklist to the almost mind-boggling challenges of AI. What's the one key takeaway that you hope our listeners will remember from all of this?
I think the most important takeaway is that product liability is a field that's constantly evolving. What might be considered safe and responsible today could be totally different tomorrow.
Hmm.
So it's not enough to just follow a checklist and hope for the
Yeah.
best, right? We need to stay informed, be adaptable, and always be thinking about that bigger picture.
So it's about being proactive, engaging with these emerging technologies, and having those sometimes tough conversations, right, about ethics and responsibility.
You got it. The future of product liability is really in our hands, and by working together, we can shape it in a way that encourages innovation while still protecting consumers and society as a whole.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into product liability. We hope you found it informative and maybe even a little bit inspiring. Remember, knowledge is power, and the more we understand about these complex issues, the better equipped we'll be to navigate them responsibly. Thanks for joining us today.